Hi friends, I'm Tammy. Welcome to my channel. Today we are talking about 12 things that I wish I knew when I first started watercoloring. I know it's gonna be a long video, but stick around because it's gonna be good. So the first thing I wish I knew was that I should have a space set up at all times. Because here's the thing. I would, every time I wanted to paint, have to take out all my stuff, my paints, my water, and then I'd have to find some brushes, paper towel, and all those things. I'd have to try to find a space around the dinner table that wasn't occupied with dishes and food, and I honestly didn't paint as often as I wanted to. That was really deterrent, and I had my stuff all in a box, but having to take it out and put it back every day just doesn't motivate you more than when you can sit down, your stuff is out, and you can just paint, which is your job to do. And then I eventually got a small folding table. It's a little fancier than a card table. And I kept my painting supplies out and I would just sit down whenever I wanted to. So always have an established space if possible. If not, have a nice box where you can keep things together so you can get right to it. So the second thing to know is that it's important to have some time to paint every day, if that is your goal. For me, I used it for self-care, I used it for learning and growing my brain, and I wanted to be able to paint every day. It was important to me, and so try to take 5 minutes a day and just set a timer. Set a timer on your watch, on a little timer that you buy, stick it on the fridge. Remind yourself to give yourself that space, because here's the thing. When I would set a timer and I would give myself at least 5 minutes, I didn't just paint for 5 minutes. I was painting a lot longer than that. And so you get into the process, you finally sit down, and it's really hard to stop if you have the time. I don't want practicing to be a stressful thing for you. What we're wanting to do is establish a routine that's going to be easy to follow through with, if that is your intention. So some people say, well, I'm not going to paint every day because it feels like this stressful thing that I can't always follow through with. Don't do it then. The mental health therapist, which is me, would tell you to set your goal and then try to reach that goal. And if you don't, you can change your goals, but don't feel bad about it. Do the painting that you want to do and figure out what's your purpose for doing it. Is it for self-care? Is it for selling artwork? Is it for someone else? And if it's for someone else, it's something to think about. Now, here's another way to make sure that it's easier to sit down and paint. Christy Rice, who is fabulous and has her wonderful YouTube channel, makes something that she calls magic cups, and where she takes a mug or a cup and she puts in some paint, paper, paintbrush. I also added a paper towel because I thought that would be important. And then you can use that cup to put your water in when you're painting. Set those cups around the house in places where you might not normally find painting supplies, but where you could actually sit down and do some painting. And it's gonna encourage you to paint wherever you're at. You don't have to run to your room to get the supplies. It's a great idea, and I suggest that you try it. I made a couple. I did do a giant cup just because it's kind of ridiculous and fun. So the third thing would be to be careful who you ask for feedback when it comes to your paintings. I know it's fun to run to your family and friends and say, look what I created. Do you like this painting? Is it lovely? Is it good enough? It's kind of like that little child in us, you know, when we wanted the affirmation from parents, you're running over and saying, look what I did. Do you like it? Is it good enough? Am I good enough? I'm not saying that you've got all that psychological stuff happening when you're asking for feedback, but I'm just warning you because sometimes family and friends may not respond exactly the way that you're looking for. And it can be discouraging, especially if maybe they're thinking a little more negative than what you were wanting. So if you have someone that you feel is a good, safe space to bounce ideas off of and to share your artwork, go for it. But don't get too upset or discouraged if that feedback isn't exactly what you're wanting to hear. Keep painting, keep motivating yourself, and remind yourself the biggest thing is the story in your head about your art. Be encouraging, affirm yourself when you're making changes and you're making progress. And it really doesn't matter what other people outside sources think about your art, because you are working on you, getting better. Every brush stroke, I always like to say, where's my paintbrush, is a step in the right direction for improvement. Practice doesn't make perfect. There is no room for perfectionism in art, I always like to say, but practice makes better, okay? Remember that one. So the fourth is to remember that watercolor is the hardest medium. I say that, not everyone might agree with that. It's pretty challenging. It's not forgiving. Is it doable to learn? Yes, it is. Is it difficult? Absolutely. So here's one of the big things, water control. People have a hard time with figuring that out, how much water to how much paint. I have a really good video for you guys to check out, and I will link it up above. I think it's on this side, or this side, it'll be up here, and you guys can check it out. It'll hopefully help with paint consistency, the really liquidy version of the watercolor paint versus thicker, and also doing a color value scale, which is gonna help you see what your colors do when you keep lightening it by adding a little bit of water. But the big thing with water control and learning all the difficult things is that it just takes time and practice. You can watch videos, but until you're actually practicing it, it's kind of challenging. And with these trees that I'm making, the first one I did a lot of water, and you're not getting definition between the little details in the tree. And when it dries, it's more like a blob. The second one, I started off okay, but then I added in the details on the top, and it did this dry brushing because I didn't have enough water mixed in the paint on my brush, and it made it hard to blend in those colors. And then the third one, for the most part, I'd say I had a good ratio between water and paint, and that ratio is gonna depend on what you are painting, people. It just is. Number 5 is about how expensive watercolor painting can be. So when I first started off painting, I was using some pretty cheap supplies because I didn't have a budget for it. And I used a Canson watercolor book, which I still have and I still love because it's a pretty good quality paper for the price, even though it's student grade. And also I use these really cheap chalky paints, the kind that after you're done using them, there's this really unappealing color, and you can see these are student grades. Look at how much more vibrant they are. This one doesn't even have a sheen to it. Chalky, like I said. I used these cheap brushes that honestly were not a bad price, maybe $10 for 8 to 10 brushes, and they do the trick. Upgrading your supplies always makes your artwork look better, but until you have the skills, where you're really feeling confident and comfortable that you could paint on anything and it would turn out fantastic, and I'm still trying to get to that spot, just so you know, you're gonna always be searching after different supplies, hoping that it's going to improve your artwork. And although good paper is really important, good paint and really nice pointed brushes are important, if you don't have a budget for that, just paying for that is not going to get you to that place, that next level. To me, it's more about practice and getting to a space where you're comfortable with your brush strokes and feeling confident in your painting skills, which is gonna take a while. I'm still, again, trying to get there. I have lots of self-doubt. I have lots of weird narrative stuff sometimes in my head, and I have to remind myself I'm getting better with every brush stroke. As I tell you that, I have to tell myself the same thing. So, no shame in using cheap supplies. Here's my sketchbook. You can see some of the paintings I did that were mostly tutorials from some of the wonderful people out there on YouTube. So don't worry about your supplies. If you don't have a big budget, start cheap and start adding one nicer thing at a time until you build up your collection. I also have an affiliated link for Amazon in terms of supplies. If you want to see the supplies that I love, that I recommend, that I've used and use now, then you can click on that and that will be up on the screen as well for you to peruse. Okay, so since we're talking about cheap supplies, I have a video, another one that I'd like you guys to see, and it's called, basically, can you paint on crappy paper? And I sought out to figure out if that would be something we could do. And I'm showing you here a little bit of that experience because if you don't have a big budget, can you paint on printer paper and cardboard and what else? Oh, I know, grocery bags, like the brown paper bags. You can. To get your practice strokes in, why not? Now, it's not gonna look the same as watercolor paper or 100% cotton professional paper, but it's going to get you that muscle memory that's really important when you're learning this new skill. I will link the video also so you can watch it if you're interested in seeing that. Okay, so number seven is to remember that your identity gets wrapped up in your art. It's not just for watercolor, of course. And this might seem like a small thing, but it's really big because you are expressing your emotions, who you are as a person, what you feel. And when that gets put on paper and also analyzed by others and also analyzed by your brain, it can be really hard to be motivated to keep going. So just remember that that is a thing. And my encouragement to you to counter that identity crisis you might sometimes have is to share your art, give it away to people. I often like to make cards for people who are sick, or if I haven't seen someone for a while. If you have a friend that's having a birthday, I always like to ask them, what's your favorite flower? And then I've been trying to make it a habit to paint them something that they can hang up on their wall that can remind them of the favorite flower and of me, of course. And it feels really good to be able to share. And I don't share my art as much as I should, I think, but it's something I'd like to practice more. When someone receives something that you have created with your own hands, it's really, really powerful. And I think people enjoy that handmade gift, that you've thought of them, that you were intentional. So this is going to help counteract maybe the anecdote to all of that identity crisis when you're doing art and you're feeling a bit insecure. Share your art. I know other people in your life will really love it. So number 8 would be to watch lots of tutorials. So I watched a ton of tutorials before I ever ventured out and tried to make compositions. In fact, the first time really that I really tried to branch out and do my own compositions was when a friend asked me to paint 8 things for her. And I had just been doing tutorials, and she saw my artwork on social media and wanted a lot of those things. And I know, of course, I can't reproduce something and copy it. So I had to make my own versions of the things she was requesting. And that was so much harder. My brain was hurting. So much harder than I expected for some reason. I'm not really sure why. It caused a lot of frustration, but it's okay. You don't have to start off doing your own compositions. So here are some of my favorite people that I have enjoyed watching and some newer ones that I've just discovered as well. So first of all, Jenna Rainey. She has amazing watercolor tutorials. She's very instructive and she does a lot of things on watercolor basics, trees, and florals. Then there's Christy Rice, who I actually got to talk to once on Zoom, and it was really fun to chit chat and just kind of hobnob and figure out some things. And what I love about her is that she is unconventional, and she would probably be the first to say that she's kind of the one that's out there of all the YouTubers, at least that I've seen. She doesn't follow the rules. She mixes media. Check her out. She is great. And then a third one that I love is Emma Lefebvre. Now, she is a stay-at-home mama who is now a full-time artist, and she has been for a while. Her tutorials are mostly watercolor florals, but she's actually been branching out and doing some other things, colored pencils and crayons and pastels, I believe, as well. So check her out. She's very down to earth, really fun. She's got amazing subscription boxes as well, and that is a very cool thing. So then there's a couple more that I just recently discovered, and I wanted to give them a shout out. So Crystal, I love her watercolor florals. She tends to do very loose vintage style of flowers, and I think she recently joined YouTube several months ago and is really thriving. So check her out, give her some love. And then the last one I wanted to mention is Jillian, and I did just discover her a little bit ago as well. So she does those loose florals. I really like how she adds white to those florals and really beautiful accents. So give her channel some love and make sure you learn all the things that you can from them, because these are a wonderful group of women and I'm learning from them as well every day. Whew, this is getting long. All right, we're only at 9. Can I count 9? There we go. Save inspiration photos. So I do this all the time. When I'm out and about, you'll often see me stop someone. Usually it's a friend, sometimes it isn't. Typically I'll see some really beautiful floral patterns just that inspire me, and I need to take a screenshot, and I do. I take screenshots of roses and florals that I see and trees and landscapes. I like to go to Pinterest and scroll through. I also have a note saved on my phone which has all of those inspiration photos. So when I'm not really sure what to paint, I just pull up, I'm doing the screen thing, right? Scrolling up, okay. I just pull up my note and I scroll through and I pick a composition or flower or something that I've seen in nature to paint or draw. I do like to draw and sketch as well. Also, books like this, beautiful floral books that have gorgeous that have gorgeous flowers that help inspire when you're not really sure what you'd like to do. So anyway, be inspired, save your inspiration, and pull it out when you need it. Okay, number 10, and I can't count anymore with my fingers because that's it. We still have 2 left. Join a painting group. I used to, when I lived in Hawaii, just a year ago, I used to paint outside with a painting group, and it's a great opportunity to not only meet new like-minded artists, but be able to learn about opportunities I was able to enter my art into an art show at a very new level of a painter. Now, when I look back on my paintings, do I love them still? Not really, but I was proud of myself that I pushed myself to at least put them up there on display. I didn't sell any, but my heart was full because I tried it, and now I can say I've been part of an art show. But the biggest thing is being able to understand where some of these other artists are coming from that have been painting for years, also painting outside rocks. It's amazing. You're in nature, it's mindfulness practice, you're relaxing your brain and your body and focusing on painting and drawing what you see. It's therapeutic. I highly recommend it as an artist and as a mental health therapist. Okay, so number 11 is to have a good mindset. I probably should have said this from the beginning. Also as a therapist, really important. Just being able to remind yourself when you were practicing, don't be stressed, don't have anxiety over this whole situation. Calm your body down, take a deep breath. Remind yourself this is practice. And why am I saying all this? Because I hear over and over again, and also it's my own experience, so I can testify to that people feel so anxious over art. And we start to put the brushstrokes on paper and we get really tensed up because we're afraid we'll waste supplies. We're afraid we'll make something ugly. We're afraid we're gonna fail and mess up like it's life ending. It doesn't matter. It's just a painting. It's just art. But at the same time, it really does matter. So what is the most powerful anecdote? Your narrative. So remind yourself that you are doing this to improve, and that's it. And you know what? Also, the biggest advice I can give you for this is to give yourself permission to make an ugly painting. That's right. So the most beautiful painting, one of the most beautiful paintings, I guess, that I ever felt like I made was I was really angry one day and I decided I'm just going to sit down. I'm just going to create something ugly and I'm going to allow myself to do that. If you do that, then you're going to let go of all the expectations around painting something perfect and gorgeous. So next time you're feeling stressed out, or you just want to change up the narrative or the trajectory of what you're doing, remind yourself, I'm gonna paint something that's not great, and just play. Okay, and number 12 is, you're gonna get paint all over. If you are doing it right, you're gonna have paint on your face sometimes, on your hands, you're gonna have paint on your clothes, your walls, your furniture, your desk, of course, because when I get that brush out and I start to do that splatter, it goes everywhere. It gets on the laptop, it gets on the floor. It's just what it is. So embrace the mess. I'm definitely a messy painter, and enjoy yourself. Thank you for watching 12 things I wish I knew when I first started watercolor painting. Best wishes to you. Let me know in comments if you have any questions. Like the video, subscribe. I also teach Patreon. I teach watercolor on Patreon, and it's a place for bonus content and all the things. If you want to check it out, link in the description. Also, I just put out a 5-video in 5 days watercolor beginner series that you guys should check out if you haven't already. If you're a beginner or kind of established, it's all the secrets, all the things that I've learned that I know, and I'm giving it all to you in 5 videos. So the playlist is linked below, as well as some free floral drawing sheets and my free self-care and botanical painting watercolor course. All right, I think that's it. Mwah.